with us today.
Sorry.
Okay. And so I'm going to turn it over to her. But before I do, just in case you have to leave, I want you to know that I do want to have a discussion after her presentation to talk about our future meetings and how we're going to continue with that. So Dr. Holmstead, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much, everyone. And thanks, Ms. Johnson, for inviting us. I'll just give a quick introduction about myself and our study team. So my name is Christine Holmstead. I am a stroke neurologist. So I'm a neurologist that specializes in stroke. I moved to South Carolina because it is the stroke belt, and it was my passion to care for stroke patients, to help improve access to care throughout the state of South Carolina. I've been here 12 years since I finished my fellowship, and I plan to be here until I retire, until we to really get control of things down here in the South. Over the past 12 years, MUSC is now a comprehensive stroke center, which is the best kind of stroke center that the Joint Commission, can have or accredit. And we've also built a very large and robust telestroke program around the state, where now 100% of South Carolinians are within a 30-minute drive of an expert stroke doc. And I think you'll be hearing in the next couple of years some data that I can't share the numbers quite yet, but I will tell you that South Carolina has been highlighted as one of the states that has made the most progress in stroke care over the past decade. So I'm happy to say that it's not just my passion, but the passion of many, many doctors, nurses, and other team members really working hard around the state to make sure that South Carolinians get the care that they deserve. Today we're gonna, let me just introduce Hannah Stark. She is our study coordinator. Hannah, if you
Hi.
hello, that's Hannah Stark. We also have Todd Lamatti. He's our program manager for what we call the SC Coast of the StrokeNet Regional Coordinating Center here. And so I appreciate everyone's time. So I'm going to get started. It won't be that long. And if there's any questions, you can stop me. It seems like a pretty casual group, but go ahead and stop me. I want to make sure that I answer all your questions. And we're going to talk about a study that we are not enrolling patients in currently, but a study that we'd like to, because we feel that this is a really, really important study and really could potentially save a lot of lives, especially here in the stroke belt. And as Ms. Johnson had mentioned, stroke disproportionately affects African Americans. We've made a lot of progress over the past decade. As I'd mentioned, in South Carolina, we have a lot more work to do, but this is the first time that we're actually starting to see some progress in the hemorrhagic type stroke. And I'll explain the different types of stroke here in a moment. So the stroke is called FASTest, and it stands for factor 7A for acute hemorrhagic, which is a bleeding stroke, a hemorrhagic stroke administered at the earliest time. So that's the name of the study. We'll just go ahead and get moving here. So today's topics, we want to discuss what is a brain hemorrhage. So basically that it's bleeding in the brain. Explain what recombinant factor 7A is, explain the FASTest trial and what we're trying to accomplish here at MUSC and around the world, and discuss emergency research and consent and why we need to hear back from you. And this way, I'm so glad that Ms. Johnson reached out, because we really need feedback from the community. Although we've been selected as a site because we are very, very successful in running clinical trials here, it's up to the community to decide that this is something that we want to do together as a community. So what is a brain hemorrhage? You see here, this is a brain scan. This is a CT scan. And this white area here is blood that has now leaked into the brain tissue. There are two types of stroke. You probably all, I'm sorry?
Don't see what you're showing.
You can't see it?
No.
Did you see my other slides or no?
No.
No.
Oh, okay. Let's go back. We'll go here. Sorry about that. Let's see.
There we go.
How about now?
Okay.
All right. Sorry about that. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
All right. So this is the CT scan, and this is the normal brain tissue, and this is a bleed into the brain tissue. So blood is white on CT scan. what many of you are familiar with are probably more the ischemic stroke. So there are two types of stroke. 80% of strokes are ischemic, meaning non-bleeding strokes. So those are the strokes that we now have medications that we can use, like what we call TPA, to help restore blood flow to the brain if given in the early time frame. Ischemic strokes are much more common, and hemorrhagic strokes are less common. So they only make up about 20% of all strokes. Again, they disproportionately affect minorities, including African Americans, but also other minorities. And they're directly related to uncontrolled blood pressure. Basically, what a hemorrhagic stroke is sort of an old or damaged blood vessel just sort of breaks under pressure and blood leaks into the brain. Unfortunately, brain hemorrhage, or there are different names for brain hemorrhage, or an intracerebral hemorrhage, meaning bleeding into the cerebral area, so within the skull, is a type of stroke that accounts for more than 10% of the estimated 17 million strokes worldwide. More than 40% of patients with a hemorrhagic stroke will die. So it has a dismal prognosis, and only 20% of survivors are actually functionally independent at 6 months. So the non-bleeding strokes have a much better or much lower mortality, and we actually have treatments for them, but currently we do not have any scientifically proven effective treatment for acute brain hemorrhage. So it's very, very important that, that we consider different ways to treat this. What's most dependent on outcome is the size of the blood within the brain. And that's because the skull is obviously a solid case, and there's no room for the brain tissue to go. And the blood actually compresses the brain tissue and causes more damage as the pressure inside the brain goes up. So just looking at these two scans, and I don't want to get into too much detail, but you see this is the first scan of this patient up here. And this scan taken just 50 minutes after the first 210 minutes after this scan, you can see that the bleeding is continuing and causing more and more damage. And the same with this scan. So just within a few minutes, 35 minutes after onset, and 105 minutes after the first scan, you can see the expansion of this hematoma, or the expansion of the blood within the brain. And that's really the worst thing that happens when patients bleed into the brain. The only kind of treatment that we have right now is supportive. So patients will be admitted to the intensive care unit if they survive and get to the hospital, and if they get to the hospital fast enough. We treat their blood pressure very, very aggressively, which is often elevated. We use ventilator support or ventilators to help them breathe. Treatments really are meant to really help relieve pressure in the brain. So we'll give very salty fluids to help draw fluid out of the brain. Sometimes they'll actually remove the bone, the skull, to allow the brain tissue to swell outward. But again, there's no scientifically proven treatment to stop the brain hemorrhage while it's happening. So what is the factor 7A, that the medication that they're looking to study, or that we're looking to study? It's a normal protein that's found in your body that helps us stop bleeding all the time. It's identical to our own factor 7 in our body, except we give it in much bigger amounts, and it's not made from humans or from tissue like that. It's actually recombinant, or it's made to mimic our factor 7A inside our body. It stimulates the formation of blood clots, and that's the whole goal, is to get that blood vessel clotted off so it stops bleeding. It can easily be given in an IV, a small little tube that goes into the vein in the arm. It works extremely rapidly, and it's actually approved for other medical conditions. So it's not a new medication that we're looking to sort of get an indication from the FDA for. This is a medication that we use for hemophiliacs who have uncontrolled bleeding. So it's an FDA approved medication that has been around for a very long time. Prior research studies of recombinant 7A have shown it slowed bleeding in the brain, but only in those patients where the patients were given that medication from 2 hours from the time that their bleed started. So prior studies were actually done out to 6 hours after the bleeding started. And what they found is that there was really a very little benefit out, 4 and 6 hours. But those patients that got the medication under the 2-hour mark, there was a significant trend toward benefit. And so that the focus now is to look at those patients in the very, very, excuse me, in the very, very hyper acute period. So very, very fast from symptom onset. Those patients that don't get the medication, whenever we're doing a clinical trial, the patients will be randomized at a coin toss. So half the patients will get the medication and half will get what we call a placebo, which is a substance that looks like the study medication but contains no active ingredients. So it's basically just like saline or water. The placebo is, again, easily given through the veins, so no one knows what the patient's getting. They're either getting the factor 7A or they're getting the placebo. We don't know who gets it. The patients won't know who gets it. And, the researchers don't know who gets it, but the computer helps generate just a randomized formula for patients that, if the next patient will get the placebo, the next patient will get the study drug, the next patient gets placebo. Again, it's just a complete coin toss. Those are the best types of clinical trials that we can perform. Those are called blinded randomized clinical control trials. So Hannah, Todd, and I won't know, the patient won't know, even the study people won't know. It'll be all computer generated. So the goal of the study is to determine if this factor 7A used to treat and prevent bleeding in other bleeding diseases can also improve outcomes after a stroke caused by bleeding in the brain. So enrollment of the study, we're looking to enroll 860 patients, and this is worldwide. This includes 100 hospitals. And again, we were selected as one of those hospitals, and it will include hospitals in other countries. So who could be in the fastest trial? It would be any person aged 18 to 80 with spontaneous bleeding in the brain, and anyone who can actually be treated with the study medication within 120 minutes from the time of their last known well, which is a very, very short period of time. So if a patient had sudden brain hemorrhage at, let's say 2 o'clock, it takes about an hour for an ambulance to get to that patient, get that patient put in the ambulance and brought into the emergency department. When you're coming to a stroke center, we are actually notified of a potential stroke patient being brought to our hospital. So the stroke team is typically waiting for that patient down in the emergency department. That patient goes directly to the CT scanner to see if there's a bleed. This is normal stroke care. This is our normal process right now. And if there is a bleed, we would randomize that patient into the clinical trial and get them that treatment, the study medication or placebo within that second hour. So again, it's a very, very fast study. So who would qualify? Again, persons who already are in a deep coma, who wouldn't, or people that are already in a deep coma who have very large areas of bleeding in the brain who are already destined to die. So those patients that have what we call brain death, they have no normal function of their brainstem reflexes, they would not qualify. People with recent heart attacks, strokes, or other blood clots, because remember, this is a clot causing medication to stop bleeding. Those patients who are on blood thinners such as warfarin, women known to be pregnant, that's just, we don't perform clinical trials in pregnant patients, and that's not specific to this study, that's just in general. Persons carrying what we call an opt-out card for the study, and I'll explain that a little bit here later in the discussion. Persons who are conscious and able to refuse, or if they have a family member or representative who's declined to be involved in the study. So those patients would not be enrolled in the study. So how does the study work? Again, everyone who comes in with a suspected stroke gets a very acute CT scan, typically within the first 3 minutes of getting to the emergency department. We would look at the CT scan and see if there's spontaneous bleeding in the brain. All patients will receive the best medical care. So any patient, whether they're in the study or not, will always get the best medical care from the Comprehensive Stroke Center like we're getting now, which would include the blood pressure medication, careful management of breathing, and trying to potentially absorb some of those fluids out of the brain with salty fluids. Patients will receive that little intravenous line in their arm and will either receive the placebo or the medication. So again, one group will get the factor 7A and the other group will get placebo. It will be determined by chance, just like flipping a coin, and everyone in the study receives best medical standard of care, just like they get if they're outside the study. Patients in the study will get a CT scan at the 24-hour mark, which we typically do for most hemorrhagic patients or most patients with bleeding in the brain. They will receive treatment in the intensive care unit, again, like normal. In addition to that, they will have some follow-up, which we typically do for our patients that do again survive and either go to rehab or to go home, which is usually a visit at 30 days and 90 days, and then again at 180 days. So potential benefits of being in a study, because the purpose of the study is to determine if factor 7A is actually effective compared to a placebo. It's not known whether if you are in the study that you would benefit or not, because we wouldn't know if you got the medication, but you could potentially benefit from a treatment that others would not be offered if you're not in the study. This is not something that we give to patients with bleeding in the brain because we don't know if the benefits outweigh any risks. Okay, so we know that patients coming in with very poor prognosis. Right now, nobody's getting this medication, and the only way to get it is to be in the clinical trial. So if you're in the trial, you may actually benefit from this potential medication. And then, of course, it's helping others. So future patients with bleeding in the brain, if the study is very positive and shows a very positive impact and outcome on patients, future stroke patients would benefit. So potential risks are very, very little risk with factor 7A, but of course, with any medication, any treatment, as you know, there is always some sort of complication or potential risk. We know from previous studies that about 5% of patients can actually develop what we call, clots that can be anywhere in the body. It could be a clot in the heart, clot in the lung, and of course in the brain, the other type of clot. Again, it's extremely low.
The most accurate.
I'm sorry? I'm sorry, did someone have a question? Okay. So why are we presenting this with Ms. Johnson at her roundtable or at the Charleston County Council meeting? The reason we're presenting it to the community, because typically we don't present our clinical trials to the community, because we present it to each and every patient that comes to the hospital, and they're given the opportunity to participate or to decline participation. But this study is what we call an EFIC study, which is an exemption from informed consent. So I'll describe that in a little more detail. Again, in most studies, investigators describe what happens, discuss potential risk and benefit with our patients. We answer the questions. Patients have to handwrite and sign that they want to participate in the study. So they get the opportunity to either, be excited and want to participate, or even decline to be involved in the study. So how is this study a little bit different? So the EFIC study is specific federal regulations actually allow for these types of studies. They're only allowed if the condition under study is life-threatening, which clearly brain hemorrhage is. If existing treatments are unproven or inadequate, again, we have no treatment for intracranial hemorrhage at this time. If there's potential benefit for patients, which we've seen in the prior studies, about 30 to 40 patients in that very early time frame tended to do better, but we're not sure if that's the case, and we want to make sure that the benefits outweigh the risks. And again, EFIC studies are allowed if informed consent cannot be obtained. So it's impossible to get informed consent in that two-hour period in most cases, because a lot of times patients that come in with hemorrhage are typically in coma or so disabled that we're not able to discuss the risks and benefits of being involved in the study with them. So before researchers can do an EFIC study, which is what this is, we must provide information about the study to the community and get their feedback. And that's what we're asking from you today. There are two different requirements for EFIC studies. One is a community consultation, which we consider this to be, is that we're consulting with the community right now to understand concerns, questions, understand how the public and our constituents and Ms. Johnson's constituents feel about the study, because we want to make sure that we're meeting the needs of the community and that we all agree that this is an important topic and we have the opportunity to be involved and we want to make sure that we're doing the right thing for everyone. Of course, there's very, very tight oversight over these types of studies. We're monitored by an independent review board here at MUSC, which is made up of community members and of course, physicians, nurses, and others, researchers at MUSC. But also we have a central IRB, which is a national coordinating center IRB. So making sure that we're regulated very, very, very closely. So how does EFIC work in the FASTEST trial? Again, patients are, if they're able to be consented, if they're awake and alert and they have a small bleed in their brain and they're able to discuss the study, we will certainly do informed consent and discuss the study and get written consent from that patient. If a family member or a representative are with the patient and they're within that time period and we think we can get informed consent, then we certainly will do that. If a family member is not available, eligible patients will be started in the study without informed consent, meaning we won't be doing all the paperwork before we start the study. If the community decides that, yes, we want to move forward with the study, we would just enroll patients as they come in with brain hemorrhage. So every brain hemorrhage that comes in, there'll be a coin toss. One person may get the factor 7, one person will get a placebo, but everyone will be treated with best medical care. As soon as the patients or family members come and are told about the study, and they're at that point, they'll be asked if they want to continue to participate. At that point, they're able to continue in the study or withdraw from the study. So what if you hear, what I'm talking about today, or you hear about this in the community and you say, I don't want to be in the fastest trial. You can ask for an opt-out card, and that says that you don't want to be in the fastest research study, and let your family members know about your wishes. You can call the local study team, which will provide you with our numbers. You can also find the opt-out card at that website that's available on this slide, and we can share that with everyone who's on the call. If you have bleeding in the brain and you have an opt-out card, first responders will look for the card, and you will not be enrolled in the study when you arrive at the hospital. So again, the study has not started yet. We definitely want to hear your thoughts. Do you think that is okay for the study to be done? The study team and medical review board will consider your input in deciding whether it's okay for the study to be done in our community. And we will be distributing a really short survey to hopefully get feedback from everyone that's on the call. Also, this is recorded, so if it's shared with other people that are interested in hearing about it, they certainly can, and we hope to get feedback from as many community members as possible. And with that, I certainly like to take any questions that anyone may have.
I have one question, Ms. Holmstead.
Sure.
This is Isaac Moore. My question is on this study and administering this, I guess you call it drug. Are they age restriction or prior conditions that prevent someone from participating in this study?
There are. So patients would only be eligible if they're 18 to 80.
18 to 80. Okay. All right.
And if they've had recent heart attacks or strokes or any other clots in the body, they would not be eligible.
Okay.
And here in South Carolina, we actually have the ability to see all of the local hospitals records for the first 2 hours upon admission to an ED. And that's so that we can immediately, obtain information. The ED physicians here, if there's an emergency, we can pull that information from all the local emergency departments to see what the patient's been treated for recently or anything like that. So we would have that information with us.
Okay, and in addition with that, what if someone is, say, visiting from out of town? How would you determine whether that person meets the eligibility requirement? Because you cannot see the records of that person.
Right, that's a great question. They would still be enrolled in the study because we wouldn't know exactly where they're from. If we can get in touch with family members or have a phone number that we can call to find out, if they've had any of these risks in the past, we would certainly do that.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Thank you, sir. Any other questions? Any comments? Does anyone have any feelings about the study, or do they think this is a good study, that this could potentially benefit, especially patients here in the Low Country in the stroke belt?
Well, I meant to mention Isaac Moore again. I meant to mention that, yes, I think it's a good idea. And basically, when we look at prior things like polio and the vaccine, the COVID vaccine, we need studies to determine what type of treatment we will have, especially when there's something that's new or something that's been going on, and we haven't found any effective treatment yet. So I would agree that it's a good idea to do a study like this.
Great, thank you. It certainly could be a very, very impactful study, and this could really change the whole shape of intracerebral hemorrhage. Right now, it is absolutely dismal when patients come in. It's just a dismal condition, and we see a lot of it here in the South, of course, with blood pressure. And so I think it's a fantastic opportunity for us as a community to be involved. And I'm hopeful that, I don't know if it'll be a positive study or not, but I'd really hope that we would be able to participate here in the Low Country. So I appreciate that. So I'm going to ask Todd and Hannah if we can share the survey. And it's an easy survey. You just click on it and answer a couple of questions and give us your thoughts. This survey will actually go back to our National Coordinating Center so that they can see that, yep, indeed, so far, people that have are in support of it in the community, people that aren't in support, any concerns that folks may have in our community before we can even consider starting. The second part of this, after we've kind of get out in the community and make sure that we're consulting different groups, the second part of this or phase of this is what we call public disclosure. So we can't, again, start the study until we've satisfied the requirements, the federal requirements to get into our community, reach enough people. And then we would have to do a public disclosure, which would be through the media, through different clinics where we would hang up posters about the study, making sure that the community knows about it. And if they wish to obtain an opt-out card, that they certainly can. And once we've done and satisfied all of those, then we could potentially start the study. So I appreciate everyone's time. And if there are any questions, my email can be available. I think I'm not sharing anymore. I can make sure that my email and our study team's email is available. And is maybe Kristen, is it okay if we send the survey to you, Kristen, if Kristen's on?
Yes, that's fine. And then I can send out your PowerPoint if you want to email it to me.
Perfect.
As well.
Sounds great. All right. Ms. Johnson, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it. I think you're muted.
There you go.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry about that. So,
No problem.
I wanted to find out, you mentioned you would want to reach people within 120 minutes after they might be helping.
Exactly. So
and you said that you thought that people are reachable within 30 minutes in all parts of Charleston County.
so currently, we have put our area about 10 to 15 lights and sirens distance. So an ambulance ride about 10 to 15 minutes from MUSC main hospital. So I don't have the map. I know we can make it available. But of course that includes, parts of Mount Pleasant, all the way into North Daniel Island, North Charleston, the Peninsula, James
Eddie
Island,
Stowe
Johns Island.
Island. So,
Yep.
so this is what I'm just thinking, because my district goes to the edge of the county.
Okay.
And,
Yeah.
I do have a concern about, how quickly the ambulance is able to reach, the patients out in the rural areas. And with something like this, I mean, it's just so very important for them to know that we've got to close the gap in between, how soon they can reach out to those outlining areas and to bring people back to
bring them back
where you're talking about, to MUSC, because going to Eddie Stowe is from James Island, it's about almost 60 minutes.
Yeah. So we've had to keep it in a very small catchment area. We can certainly share the map. I don't know. I think Todd, would you be able to share the map with Ms. Johnson and Kristen? Great.
Yes.
Yeah,
okay,
we'll send you the picture.
Okay, so you're not really just going all the way out.
No, we
in the
can't.
county. Okay,
Exactly.
all right.
And that's just
what
for
I
the
wanted to find.
study. So if the study is positive and this turns out to be a really great treatment for hemorrhage patients, typically, if a patient is too far from a comprehensive center, they go to the nearest primary stroke center. We certainly have many primary stroke centers in Charleston, including Trident, East Cooper. All of the Roper hospitals are all primary stroke centers. If the study is positive in the future, patients that go to those centers would be getting the medication if they're found to have a brain bleed, and then likely shipped to a comprehensive center so we have the neurosurgical care that they need. But so I know it's unfortunate that we have to run it in such a tight area, but we have to get the study done to show the benefit to spread it around. Yeah.
Right. Okay. I can go with that. And so to go over how a person is selected, number one is you're going to be spreading the information about the study. And so people will know ahead of time if they want to participate or opt out.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
But if they haven't heard about it and they come to MUSC, you automatically will put them in the study because there's no treatment for the hemorrhaging.
That's exactly right. There's no treatment. And so it's everyone, once we meet the requirements, the federal requirements to become an EFIC site to run this study here, unfortunately, we probably won't not every single person in this area will know about the study, but enough people will eventually know that this is happening. We as a community agree to it. And, you know, we feel that it's best for people in this area. They certainly can opt out of it if their family shows up and says, we don't want to be in the study. Of course, they probably would have received the medication or placebo at that point. But again, the medication is an FDA approved medication used for other bleeding types. So it's just that we can't just give medicine because it makes
Right.
sense that it's going to work. We need to make sure it's safe and doesn't have more risk than benefit. So,
And they have to know that they are participating in a study to begin with, no matter what kind of study it is.
right. Typically, we have to sit down and have very long conversation with our study patients, and they have to sign an informed consent. But in this study, once we've met the requirements, then the whole community sort of agrees that we're going to do this. And everyone who comes in that meets the criteria that we discussed with Mr. Isaac, they would actually get in the study no matter what. If they're, you know, if they could tell us, I don't want to be in the study, then they won't be in the study. Or if they have an opt-out card, or if their family members there and says, we don't want them in the study.
Okay, just the last one is, how many people are you trying to get in the study in this area?
So believe it or not, our goal is for 2 people.
Really?
So it's a lot of work for 2 people. Absolutely. But we can always increase that as we get started. Because it's such a long process to get it up and running with 100 sites, and there are also mobile stroke units, but we don't have mobile stroke units here in South Carolina. Our goal here is for 2. Once we hit 2, we'll ask the IRB if we can add more. So we feel it's that important. We've invested a lot of time because we really think that this is a potential treatment that could, you know, really help a lot of people. And for years and years, I mean, again, I've been a stroke doctor for 12 years. We really have no treatment for hemorrhage patients at all. And we've come so far in the ischemic stroke patients, and this is our chance to really potentially have something that might work. So, and this study is, again, it's an NIH funded study. So this is not a drug company funded study or anything like that. This is a study that's funded by the National Institute of Health because it's, you know, they choose the most important questions to answer. And that's how important this study is to really find out, you know, could this potentially be the sort of smoking gun for the hemorrhagic stroke patient? You know, could this be it? So the magic bullet. So we appreciate, again, your time. Any other questions? Let us know. I see that Todd posted the link in the chat box there. And you can click on that link, but we'll also send it to Kristen to share with everyone who's joined us today. So with that, thank you so much, Ms. Johnson. I appreciate your time and for letting us share.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes,
please.
Sure, of course.
So from my understanding, it's if you call EMS for a person and they determine that that person is having a stroke and they take them on into the emergency room or whatever, that person is definitely not going to be aware of what's going on. So how would they handle that particular patient? As far as questioning, I mean, is this the type of people that you're going to want to have the study done on?
That's exactly right. So if the EMS is called for a potential stroke patient, remember 80% of those are not bleeding strokes. So, you know, more patients are having the non-bleeding strokes than bleeding strokes. So as soon as they come in, they'll get a CT scan. We often kind of are suspicious of a bleeding stroke when patients come in that are, you know, sort of comatose. That makes us more suspicious of a bleeding stroke. So those patients will get a CT scan. If we see that bleed, anybody who's within that 2-hour window from last known normal, anyone who's within that 2-hour window from last known normal will be enrolled in the clinical trial. So they will either receive the placebo or the study drug. If they
so they're going to automatically be enrolled in it.
That's correct.
No consent needed. No consent needed.
No informed consent. So that's why we're telling you about the study. This is what we call an exemption from informed consent study. This study is done only on conditions that are life-threatening, that there's no treatment for currently, and that there's no time to try to get informed consent because the treatment with the study drug has to be given within 2 hours from the last seen normal. If we can get consent, if there's family there, then we will get consent. If the patient can consent, we will get informed consent. But if the patient is unable to give consent, which most hemorrhage patients are not able to have a discussion about risks and benefits of being in a study, then the patient would be enrolled in the study. And that's why we're reaching out to the community for feedback. Again, the study is not happening yet. This is a community decision. And if someone, says, well, if most people think that we should do it, other community members that don't can actually get an opt-out card. And we're not even close to starting the study. So just to, we're still reaching into the community and trying to get feedback from the community.
How much of the community do you have to reach out to?
So we have, Todd is on, we have an EFIC plan that was submitted to both the National Coordinating Center Review Board as well as MUSC Review Board. So the plan had to meet a certain amount of individuals, obviously different races, ages, and to make sure that, it met all socioeconomic differences as well. So meaning we actually are presenting at, I don't know, Todd, do you have it there? He's probably looking for it right now.
Yeah, I don't have a hard number. I don't know if there ever was one, but it is a very thorough process. And I mean, we have this is our, we're counting it as 8th community consultation. We have many more to do. And then we also, we're leaving flyers in clinics where, the public disclosure part. There are many places that this will be posted, potentially in the paper. We're very early on in reaching out to absolutely everyone that will hear about this.
We actually started almost a year ago. So it's been a
okay.
long process. Yes.
All right.
It took us we also, our institution here has help with trying to set up, we've never had an EFIC study in the state of South Carolina, but the EFIC studies have been ongoing in many parts of the country, including North Carolina, and all over, all over the rest of the states. And those studies are typically run for things like heart attacks, acute coronary syndrome, where someone's dying of a heart attack, where people are seizing, but they can't stop the seizing. So that's another type of EFIC study they did on patients that are having seizures that are uncontrolled. That's also life-threatening. So this is life-threatening conditions that have no potential treatment right now. That unfortunately the treatment has to be given so rapidly, we wouldn't have time to sit down and have an informed consent discussion.
Well, I think it's a very important study, and this one I'd like to see that we participate here in Charleston. So I'll reach out to some more people.
Right.
I
Is
just
there a
have
cost to participate in this study?
I'm sorry?
Is there a cost?
Not at all. No cost to the patient. Just a potential benefit of getting a treatment you wouldn't normally get, or helping future stroke patients. But there's no cost to the patient. Everything that's done is what we call standard of care. So all of the things that we do for following that patient is our normal follow-up.
May I ask a question?
Yes?
This is Viola Williams. What happened to the patients over 80? You said it stopped at 80, so if you're older than 80, you can't go in the study?
That's the inclusion for this particular study. That's correct. Most stroke studies have been done in the past between the ages of 18. Obviously, we don't do studies in children, and typically to the age of 80. But that usually doesn't stop the, so in our ischemic stroke, our non-bleeding stroke studies back, years ago, they were actually 18 to 80 as well. But we use those treatments beyond the age of 80 if the patient has a good long-term prognosis.
I just have one
So
more
there's
question.
no care for
Sorry.
people over 80?
So they still will receive standard of care, which is what we do, which is, the best medical care possible with supportive care.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I have one more question. What if a person is on numerous medication? How have you done a study to find out how this particular medication interacts with other medication?
That's a great
Um,
question. We certainly, we know that many medications have interactions. Factor 7A is actually already in our bodies. It's just giving a larger dose of it when the patient's actually bleeding. So when a hemophiliac has an acute bleeding episode, their body's not making enough factor 7A. So we give them factor 7A to stop the bleeding. So it doesn't interact with other medications. It's actually naturally in our body. We're just giving a bigger dose of it at the time of the bleed.
Okay,
Great question, though. Excellent question.
okay.
Well, I'd like to know, it looks like we have 18 participants on the call, and want to know if this is something we might want to take back to the community and reschedule another meeting at some other time. So if our participants want to chime in and give your take on that, of course, Dr. Holmstead, I mean, would you like to come back and do it another time? And I don't know
Absolutely.
how much time you have to do this.
Absolutely. We're happy to do it. We want as many people to get feedback from as many people that we can.
So like maybe next month, if we wanted to do it again?
Sure. I'm happy to do it. Absolutely. And maybe we can, if 18 people reach out to 10 people, we can have more
Right.
people on the call and get as many folks as we can. Again, it's recorded, so we can share it with other
Right.
people as well, which is great. But if that's the case, we want to make sure that we can get them a survey. And again, it's a very, very simple survey that gives us a lot of information and will help us to move forward with the study. So please
Well, I'd
don't,
like for our participants to respond on your email
I'm
to
going to put my email
Ms.
here.
Hess and let us know, your feelings on that. If you feel like, you can get some more people involved, you think this is the thing we need to do to spread the word so that others could hear about this, opportunity and at least that'll be more people informed. I know the doctor says she's only looking for 2 people to participate, but a lot of people need to be informed about it.
Yep. And we can certainly increase our enrollment as we move along.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you all for your time, and we would be happy to come back if everyone could reach out to 5 or 10 people and bring them on the call, it would be fantastic. We would really appreciate that.
So you were going to show us a survey that,
Oh, the survey. So it's actually,
are you going to send that to us? For us to-
So
it's in the
So
chat
what-
box.
Oh, okay.
Let me,
yeah, that's the link to the website, and the survey link is at the bottom of that. I'm also going to email a direct link to Kristen. I can put the direct link to the survey.
Okay.
Here's the screen if y'all just wanted to see what.
Mhm.
Oh, do you have to click on the? Is the survey on this link?
it,
We just see your Word document right now with attendance, it looks like.
This was the link that I had.
so that's a great video, a short video on the link. So if anyone wants to not hear me droning on and on, but see a nice video of how it works.
And so that's another explanation of the study. And then at the very bottom is that the study related links. It's the Redcap feedback survey. I've also provided a direct link to this in the chat box.
Okay.
That's what the survey looks like.
Okay.
But I can send it out to everybody.
All right. And is there someplace that they can say how they learned about this?
They'll know that it's from MUSC because you have to pick the MUSC site on the bottom.
Oh, I mean, the participants, like those that are on the call now, I wanted to know if there's some way for them to let you know that they heard it through this media here.
Oh, I see.
Mhm.
I'm not sure if there a blank.
Okay.
There might be a little blank area to put in there, but you'll see the Medical University of South Carolina in there.
Okay, well, I just wanted to,
Fantastic.
yeah. So you know where, who's spreading the word.
Great.
Mhm.
There
All
is a box that in the survey that asks for, any additional comments, concerns, or questions. You can state that yeah, exactly right there.
Yeah,
Where
you
you
heard on the
where
round
you
table,
were
okay.
indicating.
Okay, all right.
Oh, yeah, because it says, did you hear about the other event or how did you hear about this survey? You can hit other and it says specify right there where you heard
I
it.
see. Okay. All right, that's good. Well, thank you all so much, Dr. Hemstead and your team. For
Thank
sharing
you.
this
Thanks for having
information
us.
with us.
Yep. And Kristen, feel free to reach out if in the next month or two. We're happy to come again and reach out to more folks. So we appreciate that.
Okay.
All right. Have a great day. And
All right, thank
Thank
you.
you all.
And
Thank
so
you.
participants that are on, I just wanted to let you know, also, I have been thinking about how we're going to move forward with the roundtable discussion. We've had the roundtable discussion at the Johns Island Library for 10 years. And we got some new libraries now, the Baxter Patrick and the Hollywood St. Paul's Parish Library. So just wanted to get some feedback from you all if you think, we should move closer to some other areas. I'm certainly thinking that out in the St. Paul's area would be a good place to look at, because we do have mostly people from Parker's Ferry and some from Eddystone to come on, and Hollywood. So Johns Island has been the focus because they're in the center of our district. But I also want to try to see how we can move things around a little bit. So give me some feedback on what you all think. Would you go that distance? Would you consider having a hybrid meeting where we can have the opportunity to go online like we're doing now, or go to the location if it's not close by to where you are?
Well, Anna, this is Karen. I'm going to be a little selfish because I'm in Columbia. So I like the idea of a hybrid model.
Okay, very good. And thank you again for coming on.
You're welcome.
Definitely been dedicated and showing up and participating with us. And so it works great that you were able to do it from where you are. So yes.
Yes.
Okay. So any others got any comments now, or if you want to tell me about this later, that would be fine too. But that's something that I'm considering. The library is planning to go back to our, opening the community rooms. And so since that opportunity will be available somewhere around maybe September, we're just trying to come up with a schedule of, who's going to be.
So can you have it in Hollywood one month and then Johns Island the next month or something of that nature? Can you float it like that?
I thought about that. The only thing is when you switch things around, people have a hard time remembering where to go next. Oh, where were we last month? Oh, well, when are we supposed to go to this? So that's why I was very consistent at the Johns Island Library. I never changed the time and I never changed the location because of that. Now, of course, we could be at the one place, like I said, but then you'd have to do like Karen just said, she's in Columbia.
Right.
And so like we're doing right now. So COVID has opened our minds to start thinking more about, you know what, you don't have to do this thing the same way you've been doing it all the time. So we could have a hybrid. And I'm looking at the possibilities of doing that with the library.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
I would raise my hand for the hybrid model. It gives you the flexibility that if you're available to maybe go to a different location, because I'm out on Kiowa, so obviously Johns Island was ideal for me.
Okay.
But I also travel quite a bit. And I like the idea of being able to just pull up a Zoom meeting.
All
And
right, yeah, and I think this is becoming more the norm, to tell you the truth, for some people. You know,
Yeah.
you don't have to get dressed, you don't have to travel, and you can do like Karen. You just put your picture up there and look live, and nobody knows what you're doing. Okay, well, that's just a thought.
Dr. Johnson,
Yes.
this is Mary Jones. I totally agree with Ms. Carey this as well. You know, if you think about it, 10 years has been long enough. If you're looking for the attendance, you know, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I would go with the hybrid because I think it's more accommodating to each and every one. Thank you.
Okay, very good. All right, anyone else? All right, well, I think we've learned quite a bit here today in reference to, you know, the opportunity to improve stroke health. And I didn't know it was well, two kinds of stroke, the hemorrhaging and non-hemorrhaging. So they want to be able to tend to those that are hemorrhaging, and if they get the patients in early enough, then maybe they could save lives. So it sounds like a great opportunity to me. So we'll have to think about what is going to be our next topic for next month, because I'm just really thinking if you all think you want to share this information with some others, then it would be good to just do it now while it's fresh in our minds to get it over with and have another meeting with more people on.
Right.
And then, you know, go from there. Because she did say, the doctor said that they're trying to get this information out to as many people as they can. At least people have to know about it. So if they do get their two patients, which I feel they will, then it won't be like, oh, I didn't know that, you know, somebody goes to the hospital. I didn't know about that study. And they might have implemented that without, you know, someone's personal consent. So it's an educational opportunity.
And it's
okay, y'all.
And I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
When are we gonna hear any more about not the emergency broadband, but just the broadband in general for the area?
Good question. I don't have that right now. Not a date, but I will assure you that we will be talking about it soon, because we have this, I think it's the American Rescue Plan money that is about $80 million that's coming to Charleston. We have half of it now. So we have to decide what we're going to do with it. And broadband is at the top of my list to add on to whatever is coming out in the areas already, because I know that some areas will not be worked on with the Starlink or what's the other one, the Palmetto telecommunication grant. So
PRTC.
Yeah, so we will be talking more about that.
Okay, because I know the emergency broadband, it's not inclusive of everybody, because everybody's not going to qualify for it. But the regular broadband is what we're being asked about a lot about. When is it coming? What do we do?
Well, you know what? And I would say that this would be a great issue for everybody who's very concerned about the broadband to come to county council and let them know how you feel about it. I have said how I feel about it and how I think it's you know, a priority for me as the district leader, but it's always great for the constituents to come and state how they feel about it and what is their request. So gather up all the people you can. We just had a meeting last night, so really it won't be another meeting until I think about the end of July.
July 27th is our next meeting that we have.
27th? Okay, right. So you can bring people out and everybody don't have to speak. You can have, you know, several people to get up and speak, and just ask everybody to stand with you to let them know that you have, this is the concern you have in your area, whatever it is.
Okay.
You know,
What time? What
ahead.
time is the meeting? What time is the meeting, the
6:30,
council meeting?
Well, is Ms. Hess, is that going to be the 6:30 or 5 o'clock?
Yes, ma'am. Public comments meeting is July 27th at 6:30.
Okay.
You can also, as Ms. Johnson said, you know, you don't need like everybody speaking. You can have one person speak and then just have everybody stand, but you can also send emails.
That's right.
public-comments@charlestoncounty.org, and the council members get those emails, you know, the day of the council meeting as well. And so if you have a bunch of people sending emails saying that they support having more broadband use, the council members will get those emails as well. So if somebody can't come in person, they can always send an email. I can put that in the chat, and I'll put it in our, when I send out the email following up with this meeting, I can send that our public comments email address out too.
Okay, I was just about to ask that. So thank you, Kristen.
Okay. And you don't have to just wait until then too. I think sometimes, you know, if you feel like this is something that you want to get out because it's of great interest to you right now, yeah, let them know that you can do it more than one time.
And I think with the American Rescue Funds that Ms. Johnson was just talking about, that money can be used for broadband. So,
yes.
So as long as, you know, the council members know that that's your priority, they can make it one of their priorities. And as Ms. Johnson just said, it is her priority. So we might be able to do something on the county's end financially with that funding.
And I'll tell you what, you can just tell me what is your 3 priorities in your area. What 3 things are you concerned about, especially when you think about COVID and the impact that it had on you and your community? So that could be, you know, more than just broadband. Well, whatever you think it is.
This is Karen. I would say mental health for kids.
Okay.
So being able to help them adjust with COVID and any loss that they had, and then getting them ready to go back to school in that environment.
Okay. Well, see, that's one I didn't think about. But if you all would just respond, send that information to the same email that Ms. Hess sends you, and then I'll get it. And that'll be something that I can use when we have this priority meeting. Actually, next week, right, Ms. Hess?
Yes, ma'am. Your next week, we have some of them already scheduled for today. So all council members are already starting to work on this because it's something that we have to have done by August 31st. So, so get your issues in.
Yes. And, you know, things like the library, having a site that you can get information and connection with the community is another great one. So just whatever it is that you saw was had a negative impact, definitely let me know what that is. Okay.
Cell phone towers in this area also.
Well, I'm sorry.
The cell phone towers. We really need towers in this area because of cell phones. We dropped so many calls.
Well, that would be the broadband.
Connect that to the broadband for computers and everything else. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Well, it is 1:31, and I certainly thank you all for coming on and for giving us your comments, and we look to talk with you next month. Have a good evening.
You too.
Good afternoon.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.